And so I graduated from high school, and I got a scholarship to study at the University of Swaziland. They chose the best 120 math and science students in the country. So I was among the 120 that was chosen to do a degree in science, which is natural science. And I went to the university there, and right at the time, my brother wanted to go back to South Africa, the one who had been in Swaziland with me. He wanted to go back to South Africa. So we were a very political family because of a history, and he was crossing from Swaziland to South Africa, maybe like you're going from the US to Canada. And the people who work at we call it a border gate, I don't know what you call it here. And so they kind of searched his bag, and they realized that he had a book by Nelson Mandela, No Easy Walk to Freedom. Didn't ask any more questions, took him right to jail. And so when I called my family and to ask if he had arrived, they said no, he has not. I said, that's strange because he should have been home maybe like 2 days ago. They said no, he has not arrived. Okay, yeah, and so we started searching. I knew which route he had taken because he and I would go that way back and forth when we were in boarding school. And so they sent my eldest brother to go look for him. So my eldest brother took that same ride, got on the train and then on the bus, and he got to that same border gate. And all he needed to do was, he had to give him his passport. They looked at his passport and they asked him if he was related to Elvis, which was my brother who was missing, and he said yes. No further questions. He didn't have any other thing incriminating on him. It's just that it was the same last name and that they were related. Took him to jail. So now a week goes by, my parents are calling me, have they come over there? I said no. So now they have two of my brothers who are in prison, and nobody knows where they are. And so they kind of tortured my eldest brother, the one who had come to look for him in the prison. They tortured him and, gave him electrical shocks and everything, and just asking about our family, how much are you involved in politics, do you have anybody in exile and all that. And so after they tortured him for a week, then they let him go. And then my other brother, who had been taken first, Elvis, was still in prison. And a white Lutheran chaplain went in there, went in and talked to my brother, and just kind of get family information, phone numbers, and then secretly called my parents. He said, your son is here in prison and he has been here for a while. This is what he has been charged with. And he said his hearing is coming up on this day, and he said, you better get a civil rights attorney to come. Because if nobody shows up, he's going to go into prison for a very long time. And like I say, my parents still didn't have a lot of money, but they were able to contact a civil rights attorney who drove all over there with my dad, went into the hearing, and the courts kept on saying, we don't know anyone with that name, and the civil rights attorney said, I'm not going anywhere until you let him out. I know you're trying to keep him in there. And so they finally let him out, and then he was charged for carrying Mandela's No Easy Walk to Freedom, which was a banned book in South Africa. And so the civil rights attorney kind of negotiated with with the courts, say, can he go home at least for a week, and then he'll come back and serve his sentence. And they said, okay. So they let him go. And on the day he was supposed to be going back to prison, the lawyer called and said, just keep him there. Don't move him. I'm trying to work out something. And so he didn't have to go back. I don't know what he did, and my mom won't say anything about that. But then what happened after that was that my two brothers had to submit their passports. They were not allowed to travel outside of South Africa anymore. Our house was bugged because, they wanted to know what we're talking about. We would have visits from the Secret Service periodically just to see how we're doing, where they were. And so it was a very, very difficult situation. And in the midst of that, I was still going to school in Swaziland. So the last time I traveled through a different border gate, they kept on searching. They kept on asking me if I knew these two guys, my two brothers. I said, nope. You don't know them? I said, no, I don't. So when I got home, I had to change my passport completely. I had to go apply for a new passport. No connection to my brothers, so that I could travel safely. And then so I had to start traveling by air because, they were just kind of searching and finding things to put people in jail for. So it was very, very difficult time in our family. And then you look at apartheid. So to me, really, when I look at apartheid in South Africa, I see it through a different lens. If that white minister had not called, then my brother would have been in, and we don't know if he would have made it back. So we won our freedom because we had whites, we had coloreds, we had Asians who decided to be involved in our faith. Those whites who went out there and spoke against apartheid, they were targets. And so our struggle was not a struggle of black against white, but it was a struggle of good against evil. Because many of the white people gave their lives, like Ruth Vest, like several ministers that, said, I cannot continue to preach the gospel and live a lie like this. God's freedom is what should be experienced by all people. So going through all that, and so the other part of the struggle is was that, okay, we had the ANC, which was kind of the major body in South Africa that was fighting against apartheid, and many of the ANC people were exiles in many different parts of the world. And so they were fighting from outside. And then there were those of us who were in the country. So one of the things that we did was, all those marches, stairways, just kind of like disrupting the normal day-to-day running of the government. If people didn't go to work, there was no production. Kind of trying to bring down the economy of South Africa. And unfortunately, it was also at the time when the American government was sponsoring that, and they called Mandela a terrorist. They called us terrorists. We weren't good enough. We weren't doing good for the world. We should just stop rioting and all that. And many of those things were very peaceful. And I remember Ford Company had a plant somewhere in South Africa where they were doing all these productions and helping the South African government to produce cars, military cars that, that were strong, that would withhold all the kind of violence that we were going through. So we had friends in other parts of the world, but America was not very good. But the citizens were doing riots, because I know my husband was going to school at Texas Lutheran College, where they would have the divestment, things on campus, divest from South Africa, bring down the economy so that people could live a better life. And so when all that was happening, so okay, we have the internal ungovernable part of South Africa, because the masses are buying into that. And so the ANC stance at some point was freedom first, education later. So listen to what my dad said: freedom and education concurrently. So he was one of the people that was not very popular with the movement, because he was saying both of those should go concurrently, because my parents always said education is the key to success. So so with all that going on, freedom first, education later, many of the kids then didn't go to school now. And so they would go, some of them would go to school maybe towards the end of the year, and then they would force the teachers to pass them, whether they did all the work or not. My brother, one of my brothers was an assistant principal. And he was of the kind that, for you to pass, you got to do the work. And the students told him, you put your foot here again in the school, you're going to be killed. So we have all that going on now, and then we have Nelson Mandela coming out of prison, and those elections, South African elections.